Hello and welcome to the Helm developer meeting for August 15th. This is a CNCF project, so we follow the CNCF rules of code of conduct. So be nice. And this is recorded. If you don't like it being recorded, please drop off now. You can watch recording later. So let's get started. Go with announcements. Farina.
Wasn't ready to unmute. All right. So Helm 3.15.4 went out. We had a couple of minor bumps in it. And the next one is 3.16.0. Remember, this has a release candidate on the Monday of the week before. So the release candidate will be cut on, let me grab that date. On Monday, September 2nd. So anything we want to get in for the next one needs to get in by then, because that's when the release candidate goes out. But the last patch release went out without any issues. That's
awesome.
it.
Thank you very much for your hard work. We appreciate it. We'll move into discussions. I think it's Mile or Mealy. Are they on the call? Mario, we're just checking. I don't see it. We'll update properly. I don't think he's on a call, so I'm not sure how to handle that one, but I will move over to the next item we have in discussion, PR review. This is from Andy. We're looking at PR 12690. I will copy this link and put it into our chat here. If I can find the chat, there it is. Sorry.
I can speak to it if you want.
Please do, sir.
Yeah, this is a feature that had been long since asked. The ability to, this is for OCI artifacts, the ability to reference a chart via digest. So if you're looking into your supply chain space, we're not using versions, we're being able to now specify via a specific digest. And this is a PO that's kind of been out there for a while. I've been working with the author for quite some time to get it over the hump, and he pinged me this week saying it's ready for another review. So I'm going to be reviewing it as well. For those of you who are interested in this space, definitely provide input as well, because personally, this is incredibly important when it comes to supply chain security, being able to do that. Plus, honestly, it allows us to avoid the issue when it comes to reusing the same version of a chart. You have an atomic hash versus just a floating tag.
Sure. Are you going to get a chance to review it this week?
Yes, I will.
Okay.
It's going to be on my weekend list.
Yeah, sounds good.
Knowing that it probably needs more than one approver, do we have any other maintainer who could take a look at that?
I think I have an hour tomorrow where I can spend some time on
it. Yeah, you're micromanaging your schedule just like me. Awesome.
Oh, he's trying to be funny. That's what he's trying to do. All right. So next one.
Robert here pulls me into an hour where we'll spend on Helm stuff on Fridays, and so I will spend part of that time. But I can get some time to go look at it. I know Terry, and I've wanted this. Yeah, I wanted this one for a while, and I know Terry, so I'm happy to jump in and help with this.
All right.
I used to work with him.
Next one up is from George. George. This is a PR 12912. I put it in the chat. Floor is yours, sir.
Thank you. So I wasn't maybe strictly going to discuss these PRs through they are an important part of the context. What I kind of ask is, what do we see Helm create's purpose for being? And the reason I bring this up is the important context is both these PRs have, one is introducing Gateway API support, and the comment was, do we want to support the beta version of Gateway API in the templates that Helm Create generates? And then another PR has just come in, which is to remove the old beta version of Ingress, since that went away in Kubernetes 1.19, and issued the Helm template support all the way back to like Kubernetes 1.14, and when Ingress was like extensions something. So the real question I want to ask here is maybe not so much about these PRs, but at least the way I see Helm create is a way for people to scaffold a chart for like the forward-looking purposes of that chart is going to exist probably for a long time, hopefully for a long time. And it's not really like a dumping ground for any and every possible combination of strange deployments that Helm could possibly be used in. It's more of a best practices looking forward thing.
Helm Create creates a basic chart to show you what one looks like, and then you can build upon that. It's not supposed to have every possible thing under the sun, but it should show you some good practices, how to structure things. I think it's getting a little bit unwieldy, quite frankly, because you don't need to have everything under the sun, and you've got to think about your end users. And it's even going so much in the direction of not just the end users of it, but the power users, right? Those people who intimately know Kubernetes and maybe know applications, rather than the consumers who don't. And so it is going in that realm a little bit, but we don't need to have everything in the world there. In fact, Helm Create has the concept of starters. So that way, if you want to have your own starter that does something different, you just tell it the starter, and there's certain patterns and things for it. So it doesn't need to have, if you've got your own business with your own stuff, use a starter and use that when you want to go create things. Don't try to cram it into the upstream. We can probably do better with starters and have a more robust system around it. But at this point, I don't think Helm Create needs to have everything in the world. It should just show you some good practices around a chart and stuff out what's needed for that, and not everything.
I agree with you, Matt. And I actually had a chance to review the Gateway API PR some time back, and I saw it come in this morning, or at least the note on the dev channel. We should not be putting anything more into it. It should literally be, okay, here's a couple examples, here's a couple starters, great. Use the included tools. I was pained when it comes to trying to bring in Gateway API because it's not included by default in Kubernetes. You have to go in and purposely add in an additional component. So yes, the creator of that PR put in some hooks to see if the API is actually there, but we shouldn't have to do that. It should just be, here's a couple different examples and call it a day. And if you said, Matt, use the starter functionality.
So for Gateway API, I didn't realize this wasn't effectively going to be upstreamed. I guess it's going to be delegated to your service mesh. But it is, to a certain extent, it's just as it's a replacement for ingress, in the sense that if you don't install an ingress controller, then your ingress doesn't work. So you could make the same argument that we should remove ingress from
No, because ingress is part of the Kubernetes basic install. It won't do anything, but at least it won't blow up. If you try to install Gateway API on a new Kubernetes cluster, it will blow up because that API type does not exist.
Yeah, that's fair. So I guess there's two parts to this discussion, and keep an eye on the time. One is what we think the intention of Helm Create is, and I think that's been answered. And then I guess the other part is whether we think these PRs fit into that. And if Gateway API is not part of the cluster, so therefore it can't be part of Helm Create because it's not going to be a valuable for your basic standard user, then I can see the arguments to not include it. For the second PR, which is removing old ingress, that seems like a fairly reasonable thing to do at this point in time.
Yeah. Yeah, we're to the point where that is perfectly fine to do.
All right.
Okay,
Anyone
I can update the Gateway API PR with that. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
With this discussion and see what happens.
And with the removed beta ingress, you guys are gonna address that, agree to address that PR then?
I stuck my stamp of approval and verified it did what it said it did. If someone has a time to give more stamps of approval, that'd be awesome.
Okay. All right. Nothing else up for discussions. HIP review. This Millie, the Penabot update. This is PR 13136. I'll put it in the chat for everybody. Can anyone want to talk to this one or have context?
I don't think this is really HIP review for what it's worth.
It's not HIP review, and the reason this hasn't been merged is I'll have to look at it. I think this version of it goes into Kubernetes 131. And so when we merge the 131 support here shortly, that's when this should go in. But I didn't want to prematurely merge it with 130 because I didn't think it was with 130. But I can double check that. And that's the reason. But we'll double check that just so it's aligned with the right versions. But this should be able to be merged now, but it's not a big, it's not even something to pull here because we'll merge it.
And the other one this individual had was pull request 12.795. I'll put it in the chat. Of course, U.S. Air Force wants to do helicopter drills today.
I don't hear it, so
Good.
skip update. Okay, this one will take some review.
Okay.
And it'll require two of us to look at it. It's a small, but
Could take a look tomorrow as well. I think I might have some bandwidth. All right, back to the notes. That is everything for HIP review, even though it wasn't really a HIP review. And then shout outs, we have nothing. Social media amplification, we have absolutely nothing. Maybe the Helm 3.15.4 release. Matt?
we could probably do that. Yeah.
And then really for just the maintainers, I put a note in the chat. Next Wednesday, the 21st, is the close of the keynote for North America KubeCon video. If there's an interest in us in the Helm community having a presence on that, I think it'd be very beneficial, especially since Helm 4 is going to be mostly what we talk about in KubeCon NA, and getting it out at the keynote would be very impactful. So just want to put that out there.
Sure.
Okay.
So assignments for next call. Anyone up for moderator?
Sure, I can.
Notes?
I'm not sure when I'm supposed to talk, but I talked to Andy.
Okay.
Yeah. So I talked to Andy about my merge request. So I'm not really sure if it's online or whatever. I just put it in the chat. So if you have anything else to say or whatever, please do.
We will go to right now, but for future, we have a document here. You can put this into our discussions when you show up to the meetings, and that's what I read off. The moderator will read off of that, just so you know. But we can jump to this.
Okay.
This is pull request 13098. It's in the chat. The floor is yours.
Thank you. So this is actually the first time I'm doing like contribution or whatever, and I'm from Zesty. We're doing a Kubernetes solution and a plugin for Kubernetes, and we're using Helm. One of our issues was that we have a pre-delete hook that we actually create a lot of resources during the installation. And during those installations, we create those resources. And when we uninstall the Helm chart, we want to make sure that those resources are actually released and are able to being released. so during this this action, when I decided to use the Helm pre-delete hook, and the pre-delete hook worked perfectly fine until it didn't. One issue was that when I uninstalled the Helm chart and the pre-delete hook failed, the Helm chart disappeared completely, unless I did like Helm ls minus a, like a lowercase a, then I could see that the Helm chart was in an uninstalling state and not in a deployed state. Then uninstalling it couldn't be achieved, and installing it again couldn't be achieved unless I did Helm uninstall with no hooks. So I sent the merge request. I added the tests and everything, and Matt told me that there were some issues that he thought that might be an issue, and I talked to Andy as well, and he told me that to bring this up on this forum. But it looks like there should be some product view on this aspect.
Yeah, and part of this is when and how, because I see you moved where it's set to uninstalling, and how that's saved. And the problem is what happens with the execution hook of the pre-delete hook. There's saving there, right? That happens to store it to the release. And so if we don't set it into an uninstalling state, and then pre-delete is run, and then that is saved on the existing current state, that's where the problem comes in. So I think the handling needs to be handled separately. And that's the thing, like the function in their exec hook that happens between where you moved it from and where you moved it to, that function is actually going to go save information, and it won't save that it's in a status uninstalling state, and then the hook failed. So you don't know that the pre-delete hook, while it was in status uninstalling, that it's in status. So I think there's something that needs to be handled here a little bit more cleanly. I don't remember what my exact thoughts were about it, but because there is that intermediate save, we're now changing up when it realizes it's uninstalling. So a pre-delete hook will fail while it's not in the status uninstalling state, and that'll get recorded. And so we want to make sure that all of that is handled well, but I haven't looked at exactly. I can take a look at this one again, but that's what's going on, right? And if the exec hook wasn't saving this information buried in there, then I think the move you're doing may work, but it's the saving of the data, and then data gets into a state that I think I remember right has problems. And then how do you get out of that state?
Which data do you need to actually save? Like when
if you go inside, there's the function exec hook. If you follow that down, you will find it is saving release information, right? And so it's going to save the release information incorrectly then. And that's the problem, because it doesn't know it's in an uninstalling state. The time that this is happening, the event information isn't recorded. So you'll see your hook failed, but for example, the time that it failed at, because you were in a delete, in an uninstall operation, that won't be captured anymore. You won't know that exact hook, this pre-delete hook, you set up an uninstalling operation. You won't have the time. You won't know, that kind of information won't be captured in the process any longer until after the fact. But by that point, you've actually returned without capturing it, because it was never saved. And so this needs to be handled differently, just because there's saving that happens right now in the operation.
If I understand correctly, and I'm pretty new to Helm, and I'm sorry if I, so you're saving the state, the persistent state in a secret, right? In
Yes.
a secret in a Kubernetes resource, and
Yep.
this is how it is saved. When I'm uninstalling a Helm chart, what happens is that the exec hook actually changes the state of the secret, the resource,
Yeah.
and this time I don't really feel that it's accurate. Like if you would like more logs or more information or whatever, I think it would be awesome to add them. But for this scenario, it just removes it doesn't remove the secret. It just changes the deployment type, the status of the Helm secret to uninstalling, and it can't be recovered. So I'm not
Yes,
really
I
sure.
understand that, but I understand that. There was something in there with the way it was, because it takes the existing release that's out there, doesn't create a new one, and sets that to uninstalled, right? And then it goes ahead and records information on it. But certain details about what process it's in is not captured now. I understand the problem here, right? It gets into an uninstalled state, and then you can't uninstall from an uninstalled state. And the problem is, though, the way we're changing the storing of information is the problem, right? And if if when it exec hooks wasn't saving information, this would probably work. But because it's saving information, my concern is about how the information gets stored strangely then. And so that I'll go revisit it and try to give some more direct guidance, but I think there's a problem in the way the information is being stored when this happens now. And that was where my original concern was. And to look at it either a different way to solve this problem, or a way that it doesn't mess up the existing. But I agree with the bug. It's just the way information is being stored was my concern. And the way this it might cause situations that break some other things. And so that's what I was looking at.
Sure. So I have the time to
Okay.
have conversation or whatever we need to do. So if we want to schedule an appointment or whatever, I'm able to actually change the whole code. I don't really
Okay.
care. So let's do it.
All right. I see your email address up on GitHub. I will reach out to you if I need to schedule some time. And I will give you feedback on this so that way it can get moved along.
Awesome. I'm also on Slack, so on the Helm Slack channel.
Okay.
All right, so real quick, I updated Imri, the discussions. I put your PR in there, so you can you don't have to update it. I already did it. Continuing on for the assignments for next call notes. Do I have anybody? All right, I will put myself for notes. Issue triage. Anyone this week? No one. PR reviews.
I can do issue triage. I just
All right.
needed.
We'll take a look at some PRs. And core maintainers for next week. Anybody?
I should be here.
I should be here as well.
That was you, Joe. Sorry, I didn't see.
That was Andrew.
Andrew. Okay, sorry. Awesome. Anyone have anything else before we end our call? All right. Well, thank you guys for very much, and we'll see you guys next week.
Awesome. Thank you all.
Thanks.